Welcome to another episode of Message from Mom, where we're busting the myth that mothers in law aren't necessarily monsters in law. And we have a very hot topic, and it's really been in the news recently, I think, because the Trump administration is selecting their cabinet members, and one of the members that's going to head up is it the FDA?
No, I don't think it is the FDA. Are you talking about RFK?
RFK Jr., right?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, well, I digress because really we're talking about the food crisis, ultra processed foods in America. And I do know that RFK Jr. has some very strong stands on this. And actually, this is a topic, and why I think it is a hot topic is because recently a statistic was revealed, or not revealed, but was shared that 75% of Americans are obese. And that is a shocking statistic. And so that really, and we did not used to be an obese nation 40 years ago. So that's why we're going to take a look at the food crisis and then the ultra processed foods. So, but before we get into the episode, we are going to raise our class. I can't talk today. Glass, it's the end of the year. Can you tell? I may be tired from 2020. Blah, blah, blah. Okay.
From 2024.
I think we need to. Okay. We're going to raise our glass and a toast because we know that you don't have to be a blood relative to love your relative.
Right.
Okay, ladies, I got that out.
Cheers.
All right, cheers.
Cheers.
Oh my gosh.
Cheers.
I'm having a moment
Cheers.
today.
I didn't look at you. Sorry. That's all right. Bad luck.
But I am a little bit tired, and 2024 is drawing to an end. So I am looking forward to 2025. But
Me too.
and we just briefly touched on, so Trump has been elected, and so his cabinet members are being recommended, and RFK Jr. is one of them. And he does have a very strong stance on food and processed food, and actually, quite a few things. But we're going to take a deep dive into ultra processed foods in America. And my message from mom really is going to be maybe a little horrifying. I'm going to tattle on myself, but I do think of my mom's generation. I always try to bring her into this or my parents into this, but my mom grew up, she was born in 1935, so grew up during World War II. And they had chickens. I mean, they didn't live on a farm. They lived in the city, but they had chickens in their backyard and a chicken coop, so she'd get the eggs in the morning, and they used to, chop the head off the chicken. And she never was a big fan though of chicken because she actually, God bless you.
Thank you.
She actually viewed, how you had to get the chicken from the yard onto the table. So she kind of never really was a big fan of chicken, but and they had Victory Garden. So they had fresh food all the time. And that's how she grew up. And they did not have McDonald's then. They didn't have Burger King. It was a very rare day when they went out to eat. So it was always homemade meals. And they knew where all of the products were coming from. So because they knew the butcher and they knew they knew the milkman and they knew everything. Well, fast forward to when she was raising my brothers and myself, then that was when she was all on board for anything that made her life easier, like hamburger helper or, I mean, whatever the craze was. I mean, she was always very tuned into all of the trends. And so that's how I grew up. I mean, I grew up on a lot of crappy food, to tell you the truth. And I didn't think anything of it when I was raising my children. And I would pack their lunch for school, and I would be on the easy fast train too, and I would get Lunchables and give them Lunchables every day. And lo and behold, we're going to fast forward to 2024, and what has been banned? Lunchables, because it's processed food, and then that's what I was feeding my children, and I had really just no. I had no information. We didn't have any information, and so I'm really glad that we do have the information today that we didn't when I was, even 20 years ago when I was raising the boys. So really, it's very interesting to see that whole trajectory from my mom to me to, and I think the pendulum is swinging back around. So this is like of a 50-year span. And I am very, very glad that we're starting to make some headway. But to just give you foundational pieces, because we really do try to go to sources for our discussions. And so we have several. So if
Mhm.
you're interested in any of these, we will link these down below. If you're watching over on YouTube, we always link everything in the description box. So the first one is On Point from WBUR, and that is from Vaccines to Fluoride. How could RFK Jr. reshape American public health?
So, just a real quick note,
Uh-huh.
going back to what you brought him up earlier,
Hmm.
I just wanted to say that he has been uh, the Department of Health and Human Services is the
Okay,
division
Yeah,
that
that's
he's
right.
been
yeah.
nominated
And
to.
the FDA is under that. Yes. Thank you. I appreciate that. So, yes. That's our first foundational piece, and then we have the true extent of America's food monopolies. That's from the Guardian 2021. Then we have what we know about the health risks of ultra processed foods. That's NPR 2023. And then how food tech consumed the American diet, CBS News 2024. And we do have s- the a few we have two others as well, but we're really going to touch on these articles. So I'm just going to throw it open to you ladies. I mean, I will tell you, I've had quite the trajectory, and I tattled on myself
Mhm.
on what I used to pack for the boys, but I've been on my own health journey since I turned 60, and have really taken a lot of deep dives into our food, processed food, what we should be eating, what we should not be eating, how food directly
Mhm.
relates to our health and many autoimmune diseases. So maybe for 60 years I was erring in many, many ways, but I'm hopefully making up for it now. And I mean, I will just share with you, I just had my annual physical and they did blood work and all, this, that, and the other thing, and I'm 66 years old, not on any prescriptions. I mean, my blood work came back
Yeah,
amazing.
that's great.
And, so I'm telling you, it's not that I'm a purist. I mean, listen, I will have a cookie. I mean, I would even have a McDonald's. I would have a quarter pounder, but that's not the norm for me. So I truly do believe we are what we eat, and it's also never too late. But that said, so ladies, can you, or maybe Kelly, you're always really good at this. What are ultra processed foods? Let's just talk about that first, so we can define our terms here.
Yeah. So, I think up until just recently, we were talking always about just processed foods being really bad for you. But
Hmm.
ultimately, when you look at everything that we buy in a supermarket, everything is processed in some way or another, whether it's
Yes.
the heating, the canning, the cleaning, the fermenting, the drying, the packaging, preparing
Hmm.
things to ship, all of that is considered processed, right?
Hmm.
So unless you're going out to the tree and picking the apple and eating it right then and there, or going out to the garden and plucking a carrot from the soil and eating it right there, there's some element of processing that's going on with your food. So the distinction to make here is really the difference between processed food and ultra processed food.
Hmm.
So we're talking about ultra processed foods today.
Hmm.
And that's taking processing to a whole other level. And it really has just become synonymous with junk food.
Hmm.
And that's kind of an easy way to sort of think about the difference between a processed food and an ultra processed food.
Hmm.
I think like an easy way to describe it, at least for me, is let's say you go to the grocery store, anything that's going to be found on your internal like aisles
Hmm.
is probably going to be more of your ultra processed food. Anything that is external,
Hmm.
right,
On
is
the
going to
periphery.
be the
Hmm.
healthier options.
Right.
The fresh.
Yeah,
Right. That's where
exactly.
that's where our veggies are. That's
If you
where.
like want a visual, that's what I would
Hmm.
kind of describe it as.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then within that, you're going to have more ultra processed than others,
Right.
Right.
because you've obviously got your bread and compared to your cereal and stuff like
Mhm.
that. But
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so now that we have a good understanding of what ultra processed foods are, so how do you think that we got here? I mean, I just revealed, or not revealed, shared this statistic that 75% of Americans are obese.
Hmm.
So, and that's directly related to our diet. I mean, there's no two ands, ifs, or buts about that. That's our diet. So, how do you think we got here? How did we end up being a country that relies on ultra processed foods as the norm rather than, I mean, like I was sharing, I my mom didn't even have McDonald's growing
Mhm.
up. I I mean, McDonald's was readily available when I was a child, but we went like maybe once a month. I
Yeah.
mean, not every day like people are going today.
But I think that's also the well, I think there's a lot of things. Convenience culture is kind of what we term it now, but
Mhm.
back during World War II, there was a huge need for shelf-stable food,
Mhm.
Mhm.
right? So American companies increased their technology and their production to be able to create foods that could be sent overseas with troops that could last for months
Right.
without needing refrigeration. So once those technologies were in place, then it became a very compelling idea to supply just the American family
Mhm.
with food that was not only shelf stable, but equated to convenience in the kitchen.
Mhm.
So that's when you start getting, things like canned soups and hamburger
Mhm.
helper types
Mhm.
of meals and things
Right.
like this, right?
That
So
I
it's
grew up
not
on.
even just the going out to eat fast food that is really worrisome. It's the things that we buy at the grocery store that we think are helping making our mealtime preparation easier.
Mhm.
And while they do that, they're also injecting all of the additives and preservatives that are probably not so good for us into the things that we think is a good home cooked meal,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the problem, I think,
Mhm.
with that. But of course, when you get rapid increase and proliferation of technologies, especially in a sector like food that is
Mhm.
owned by corporations and they
Mhm.
see the money making potential for this, then that just sends it on a rocket ship, like as far as so many more companies and so many more foods are being created and changed into something that could be shelf stable or that
Mhm.
could
Mhm.
be
Mhm.
preserved in a way that is new and different.
Right.
Well, it's
So
convenient for the consumer and it's convenient for the person, like you said, that's making it because, once they figure out, oh, we can
Mhm.
include these additives or this is what we can put in here,
Mhm.
um, it's easier. I mean, let's think about what's easier to make, right? Is it easier to grow fresh fruits and vegetables or is it easier to add some, dyes to some cereal?
Mhm.
I think it's the latter,
Mhm.
you know?
I would not disagree with that, but I've always had this theory, and Kelly, you brought up an interesting point because during World War II, we actually had to feed the troops and we had to have the food that was going to stay sustainable for months and months and months.
mhm,
So, but with that technology or invention or whatever we want to brand that. So when we came back, I mean, after winning World War II, and we had the baby boom. We also had all the GIs. It's like, so they're going off to college or they were setting up their families. And one of the things that was really driving everything was the oil industry,
mhm,
was gas and oil. And it was also automobile and it was also housing. So it's like, okay, because we were a very urban society. We were either urban or agriculture. We
mhm,
didn't we didn't have suburbs until after World War II. So one of the things that I've thought of long and hard about for many years is like we had this boom to send everybody out to the suburbs. We're going to build all these new houses, which is great because then the GI's got low mortgage rates, the VA loans and all of that, which is great,
mhm,
to reward them. But so we're building all these houses. And then they have to have an automobile to drive, back and forth to work. And then, so then the gas is happy, the automobile industry is happy, housing is happy. Then it's like, how are we going to feed everybody?
mhm.
Oh, okay, supermarkets. And that's when supermarkets really came into play and
Yeah.
the big chains and all of that. So then that's when everything really started to change when it came to what we were consuming. Because before that, we would go to, and Europe is very much like this. And this is
Mhm.
what I so admire about Europe. They go to the local market almost every day.
Yeah.
And they know where those eggs are coming from. They
Mhm.
know where that fish is coming from. They know, I mean, they have this relationship with all
Yeah.
of all the vendors, the farmers, or whatever. And also, Europe has many more restrictions than we do
Yeah.
on food. But I, So me personally, I think this is how we got here.
Yeah.
We got here, I mean, it was a great idea. Um, as I said, we're basically rewarding the veterans. And I mean, who doesn't want to have a car and a home and, all those beautiful things? But it
Yeah.
did remove us away from knowing who is making our food. And I just remember too, as a young mom, I would go grocery shopping for a whole week. It
Yeah.
was like, oh, I just wanted to do it once rather than, there again, going every day.
Right.
Yeah, and really it should be a daily
It should be.
activity
It really should
Yeah.
be.
if you're actually cooking
Mhm.
It's kind
healthy
of
items.
Absolutely.
it's kind of funny in conjunction with this recently I saw on television this segment about there is I can't remember which state it was in, but there's this state that's piloting this new technology of shopping cart. So that the shopping cart basically has a scanning system and a card reader and all the things so that you don't actually have to go through the checkout aisle anymore. When you go to the supermarket, you take something off the shelf and your cart automatically scans it when you put it in the basket.
Oh, wow.
And then you can just pay with your credit card when you leave, right?
Uh-huh.
So the story was mostly talking about this new technology,
Mhm.
but as part of the story, they kind of went back and told the story of the shopping cart and how it's evolved over the years. And so this fits in with what you're saying about our shopping tendencies as suburbs became uh, the place for supermarkets
Mhm.
and once a week shopping.
Mhm.
And the shopping cart had a lot to do with that evolution because at the turn of the century and all the way up in probably through the 30s, I think it was, people just, you had a basket that you would take. So you can only fit so much in that
Mhm.
basket, right? So
Mhm.
with the idea that you're buying only a few things at a time every single day.
Right.
Um, as supermarkets became a thing, baskets turned into like two baskets on like a push cart, kind
Uh-huh.
of a rudimentary shopping cart as we know it today.
Mhm.
But the guy that invented this thing in the store that he ran, he would hire local actors and like people to like push the carts around to show people how to use these things because
Mhm.
nobody was familiar with this idea of pushing this cart to do
Right.
your grocery shopping. Everybody
Right.
wanted to carry something.
Uh-huh.
Um, and from there, it just,
Mhm.
turned into this,
I
Mhm.
know.
the shopping carts get bigger.
I know. Well, look how big they
Um,
are now.
yeah,
Well, then we have
it's
an
pretty
listen,
incredible.
I mean, I love Costco, but I mean, when you go into Costco, you can get basically that,
And have a rack.
yeah, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, it's like you don't even have a cart anymore. You have
You have
Oh,
a flat.
the
Yeah,
trolley or
yeah.
whatever. I don't know
yeah,
is
a
that what they
hand
call it?
trolley
Yeah.
basically, I
When
guess.
I think being able to, like you mentioned, like the moving out to the suburbs, and then when like the microwavable meal came
Mhm.
into
Mhm.
play, being
Mhm.
able to have things that
Yeah.
you store in your freezer,
Yeah.
and then you can just pop in the microwave.
That's right.
And it's not only is the meal itself not great because it's got a bunch of additives, the
Mhm.
microwave itself is really not. Microwaves aren't good for
I
you.
know. I know.
So I mean,
Mhm.
it's just like a
Uh-huh.
evolution of things that has
Mhm.
transpired that
Well, and the packaging, like
the
especially like the
packaging.
old
Right.
TV dinners that you'd put in the oven for like
Oh my
45 minutes or
gosh.
something, it's just in
Yes.
plastic
I know.
basically.
Yeah,
Tin
like it's I
tin
mean,
foil. Tin.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, they used to be
I
tin
love those.
foil.
I love
Yeah.
those too.
We used to, I mean,
I
that
used
was
to
a
have
treat for
I
us when
know,
we
I'd
would
have
get
like
those.
one little drumstick
Yeah.
and applesauce.
oh
Yeah.
Yeah, all
yeah.
the
I thought it was
I
complete.
mean,
the best thing in the world.
my breakfast
Oh my
every
gosh.
single morning from freshman year to senior year was the chocolate chip Eggo waffles
Mhm.
with peanut butter
Mhm.
on top.
Mhm.
I ate that. I mean, the peanut butter was good for you,
The
but
peanut butter is good, but yeah, everything else
I
is
literally ate two
chocolate
of
chip
those
is
every
so
single
good.
morning. And I mean, that's just
Uh-huh.
terrible for you. But again, we didn't know.
I know. But now
No one
we
knew.
are I mean, I'm really very thankful for information coming our way and more and more. I know a lot of it still is kind of squelched
Mm.
because I mean honestly, we can take a little bit of a look at this. How I mean, it's very incestuous. The FDA is in bed with the food companies who are in bed with big pharma. I
Pharma,
mean,
yeah.
it's kind of like and we cannot address all of these scenarios here on this podcast, but it really is it's because I one of the things I do think that we need to talk about. So we know how we've gotten here, and we are here, and
Mm.
we are an obese nation, and we need to really have a reality check. And so much of it has to do with our food. But how do we get away from here when we have the FDA, big pharma, and then all of the main food companies are all, in this together, so to speak. They're not interested in getting us healthier because that's going to put a big dent in big pharma's pocket.
The big food.
Uh-huh. And the big food companies. But the FDA is, that's our government. They should be on
Well,
our side. And
I
I don't
think
really
that
think they are on
people
our
are
side.
finally starting to maybe take a stance, and that's one of the things that we have in here. But the Kellogg petition,
Hmm.
so it's basically this petition that an influencer on Instagram, she's on Instagram, TikTok, she's on everywhere.
Hmm.
But the food babe, and I want to say her name is like Ronnie, Veronica or Ronnie.
Here, we can look it up.
I have to look up her last name,
Yeah.
but I think she has like over 2 million followers on Instagram, and she basically created this like Kellogg petition. And there's currently,
Hmm.
I think,
Vanny Hari
Vanny.
is the
Okay.
creator of Food Babe. Hmm.
Where did
Vanny
I get
Hari.
Ronnie from?
Well, that's close.
I'm like-
Ronnie, Hanny. I don't know.
but there's almost 500,000 signatures
Hmm.
on this petition, and it's a lot of people that, and I think it's a lot of, she kind of marketed almost to the younger like mom crowd
Hmm.
and that generation,
Hmm.
um that's like, hey, we don't want to feed our kids this anymore.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Like, why are we feeding our
that's
kids
right.
this?
Yeah. Well, let's.
Because they're
Sorry.
realizing that all of these artificial food dyes are
Yeah.
in their cereals,
Yeah.
and
Let's take a couple steps back and think about and talk about why are we feeding our kids this,
Yeah.
and how could we have ever known?
Hmm.
So, um, in going back to the accelerated innovations of food technology,
Hmm.
the FDA just they cannot keep up with the regulations that they
Hmm.
need to, as far as telling us that things are not healthy or even testing things well enough to know.
Hmm.
And part of this is because, like I said, the technologies have accelerated so much. But back in 1958, there was an acronym that is called GRAS, and it's food additives that are generally recognized as safe.
Hmm.
So this was established to waive FDA review of very common ingredients like baking soda and vinegar in
Hmm.
foods, right?
Hmm.
Sounds pretty harmless,
Hmm.
seems okay.
Hmm.
So that goes on and on. But in 1997, which isn't really that long ago when you think about it,
No.
the designation was loosened by Congress to allow companies themselves to add substances to the list without petitioning the FDA. So this created a loophole for companies to add substances and
Hmm.
chemicals and
That's very
preservatives
interesting.
into
Uh-huh.
food without petitioning the FDA before
Okay.
doing so. So
Hmm.
this is kind of a bit more how we got here,
They opened
right?
up the Pandora's box. Yes.
Exactly.
Hmm.
So now the companies creating these foods, they have a loophole that they can just, or they're greenlit to add these
Right.
chemicals and substances to food, right?
Mhm.
Um, Sorry about that. So there's a nonprofit called the Environmental Working Group that found that of nearly 800 food chemicals introduced between 2000 and 2021, 99% of them avoided FDA scrutiny using the GRAS
Mhm.
designation. Okay, now
Mhm.
here's where the big difference between the US and Europe comes into play.
Mhm.
As of 2011, 10,000 approved food chemicals in US foods, nearly 5,300 food additives, and 4,600 GRAS substances. In comparison, the EU has only 411 approved food additives
Right.
and zero GRAS
I know.
substances.
Right.
So the huge disparity between
Mhm.
the food that we are feeding our kids here and we are eating ourselves
Mhm.
here is
Mhm.
shocking.
It is.
I mean, it's really, really
It
shocking.
is. And our government allowed that loophole to
Mhm.
exist. And so that's what I'm saying. It's a very incestuous
Yeah, for 40 years.
scenario here.
Crazy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, it's allowing, and I feel like the majority of people that are maybe consuming some of these foods now, that people are starting to be more aware of it, is a population that, like the underprivileged
Yes.
population that
The low
doesn't have
income.
the low income, that doesn't
Mhm.
have the money to buy organic fruits
Mhm.
and vegetables. So of course, yeah, like what are we
Mhm.
gonna feed our kids for breakfast?
Mhm.
We're going to feed Fruit Loops, you know?
Well, let's see. I mean, even just fruit and vegetables at all, and that kind of leads us to a whole other
Yeah.
problem, which
Right.
is the food desert problem in America.
That's right.
But knowing this crazy amount of chemicals and additives that we
Mhm.
have in our food is
Mhm.
what has spurred Food Babe, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
the food babe
Um,
is
Mhm.
her.
this is what has, spurred her
Mhm.
to go after Kellogg's because breakfast cereal, I mean, Kellogg's and their companies make so much of the food that we
So
eat
They
much, yeah.
do.
anyway. But if we're just talking about breakfast cereals like
They
that,
do. Mhm.
that is one way to really get after,
Mhm.
a really big problem and then opening the door or opening people's eyes to the realization that this is happening in all of
Right.
this
Well,
packaged
Right.
food.
and
And
what
they're also allowed to, because again of loopholes and verbiage and all that, they will even come along on some of their cereals and say it's heart healthy.
Yeah.
They will say, I
oh
mean,
yeah.
and I've turned down campaigns before with breakfast cereals for this very reason. It's because it's like, no, I know exactly what are uh, in this box. I
Yeah.
know the ingredients. This is not heart healthy. This is, I don't care, how you want to spin it.
Well,
I'm not gonna partner with that. But
Yeah, I think
they get away with
what's crazy too.
murder on
yeah.
what they can claim on their food.
Well, what's crazy too is that, on Instagram and like on the Food Babe and any Instagram account that portrays any kind of organic lifestyle or healthy lifestyle
Mhm.
that is against um, you know, Kellogg or, Big Pharma or whatever it may be, then they start adding warning labels to their videos.
I
Like
know,
Instagram
right?
will add like, this has not been approved
Mhm.
by
Yeah.
FDA or whatever, whatever the warning label is.
Mhm.
And so then if you're not informed
Mhm.
on it and you're scrolling through videos, then you're thinking whatever she's posting is actually crazy. Like what do you mean that this is
Mhm.
wrong?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a really interesting spot that we're in and in talking about this before, like in preparation for this podcast, I was sharing that I feel very cynical and down about how to get ourselves out of
Mhm.
this. If we go back to that question that you asked
Mhm.
initially,
Mhm.
um, because one of the biggest issues is that both the USDA and the FDA are controlled by Congress, and as long as Congress has lobbyists with big food companies
Mhm.
and everybody's in each other's pockets on the congressional side of things, any real movement and change in legislation for not only food additives but labeling.
Mhm.
And I don't even think labeling goes far enough. I think you could put labels on food like they do tobacco and cigarettes in foreign countries, and people are still going to buy those things.
Mhm.
If someone wants a bag of Doritos and
Mhm.
it says this product might kill you,
Right.
they're still going to buy the Doritos if they
They
want
will.
them, just like I'm still going to buy a pack of cigarettes and smoke them when I'm in
Mhm.
France because I want them.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I don't even think labeling, and this is the kind of like incremental little scab picking that food companies are doing, is that they're willing to say like, oh well, we can go this far with labeling, but not this far. I think we're so far beyond that. Like we
Mhm.
have to actually go and model ourselves after Europe, where we just
I
have
wish.
less and fewer of these
Mhm.
Well,
chemicals and
and the
Mhm.
problem, like,
preservatives.
so on the one of the foundational pieces that we have on here on point, the from vaccines to fluoride. Um,
Mhm.
well, it's not an article, but it's a kind of like a podcast,
It's a news program, but they
news
do
program. Okay.
they have a transcript that you can read like an article.
So uh oh my gosh, I just lost my train of thought. Pregnancy
Sorry.
brain.
Uh-oh.
What were we
Pregnant.
talking
Did it
about?
have to do with RFK?
Vaccine to fluoride. Um, okay.
Okay.
All
Well,
right, come
we'll
back.
move on and we'll come back to
Sorry,
the
moving on. I'm pregnant. Just
Gotcha.
excuse me. I really did have a good thought there, but it'll come back to me.
That's okay. We can fill it in because I'm just going to go back to what Kelly said, and I truly believe this too. I wish we would could go back to a model that Europe still has today, and that is to go to the daily market. It gives you an excuse to dress up. I mean, I always get this over on sale at a certain age. Where are you going? Well,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm going to go to the market and I'm going to go get some fresh fish and maybe talk to a few of my friends and
Mhm.
socialize along the way. So not only are you getting socialized, but there again, you are daily shopping with with items that you know where they
We're
are
coming
coming
from.
from.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the big miss that we have in the US, and we are all about convenience, and we all I mean I can remember because my late husband was not American. He grew up in Vienna, Austria. He was Persian but grew up in Vienna, Austria, and I can remember his sister Nasa would come over and she's like I mean, she did love America and Americans, but she's like, you guys just love your big cars, and then you have a
Mhm.
big ass, and then you go to the the big bank, and it was I mean everything is just bigger here.
Everything's bigger.
Yeah.
It is because we do, and but her point was we do like convenience, and we do
Yeah.
and we are addicted to it, and I think that that's also part of the problem too,
Yeah.
is that we want things fast.
Yeah.
We don't want to take the trip to the I mean, I could go to the grocery store every day. It's just the same kind of a model. It's a little bit different than Europe, but I could go do that every day to get something fresh or
Mhm.
fresher, but we choose not to.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we do choose to stock up our fridges, for the week. We do like to. I mean, and I'm not against. Listen, I'm not against meal prepping or anything like that, but I do think the whole ritual of meals and putting together a healthy meal and sharing that with your friends and family, I we don't do that at all
Yeah.
over
Well, I
here.
think, I mean,
There's
even
such a
I
disconnect.
remember my
We
thought
don't even
whenever
we
you
don't
want
even
me
sit
to
down. We don't even. Do you remember? We don't
I
even
do
sit
remember
down
it.
to eat anymore. I mean, we stand half the time, or we're eating in our cars. I mean, that's
Mhm.
also kind of horrifying too, and I think that's
Mhm.
part of the problem too. But anyway, okay, Prego, what do you have?
Okay. So on the foundational piece, the on point, basically he talks about how we obviously have all of these, and this is to your point, like, everything that's in the store with the processed foods, and we have all of these products. But and this was a scientist saying this. He said one of the big problems with this to almost pulling these items off the shelves is we have nothing to replace it with.
Yeah.
There's like nothing that we can, so basically we're just pulling the items off the shelves, and then these companies are going to have to like fully revamp how they do things, right? Which then are going to add money, like cost, to how they're
Right.
creating their product,
Mm-hmm.
and they probably don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Possibly, but let me also remind you that a lot of the companies that are selling Doritos in America are selling
Are
Doritos in
selling.
Europe that don't have the
That's true.
same stuff that, so they are these companies are
Are
capable of
capable
producing
of.
food that will sell in Europe and
Yeah.
meet their regulations, but they just are choosing not to do that here because they're allowed to, A,
Mm-hmm.
B, it makes enough money as is, so why
Mm-hmm.
change it now, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just so weird to me that I don't understand. I mean, I guess what my question is, if they are selling, uh, products in other countries that have less ingredients,
Mhm.
why not just sell that here?
I know.
Exactly,
What's
because they
the?
don't have
Yeah.
to.
I mean, do they? I've never had a Dorito in Europe compared to a Dorito here. Does it not taste as good? Like,
Same. I mean, so here's another example. We can take Doritos off the table, but Lay's potato chips.
yeah,
They sell Lay's of all kinds of flavors here. They sell Lay's of many other kinds of flavors in different countries that speak to that country's, like I think when we were in France, I saw like
Mm-hmm.
they had Lay's flavored like
okay,
roast chicken.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
So their flavoring additives might be a little bit, or the
yeah,
flavorings might be different, and that might be where the biggest problem is. However, these companies are capable of creating the same product in a healthier way and still selling it here. And it just boggles my mind that they don't. And they don't
Yeah.
because they don't have to, because Congress isn't making
I
them.
know.
And it's going to take people like Food Babe and
Mm-hmm.
petitions and lobbying, like us as citizens lobbying our congressional representatives to actually try to change.
well,
Right.
and the problem too is that he talks like the scientist, in this on point, video. He talks to how they don't have enough scientists to, make sure that some of these additives are okay. And then he's also like, it's really hard to test them because
No.
how do you bring someone in and say, oh,
BS.
we're gonna give you an additive that might cause you cancer later on.
Yeah.
Well, then why are we even discussing putting that in our
I
food? That's
know.
my question.
Right.
I
I'm
know.
like, okay, why do we even
I
need to
know.
test this if we're even in question
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
to like that this is potentially going to cause cancer?
Mm-hmm.
Then it shouldn't be in our food.
I
Yeah.
know.
Like, why would you
I
even?
know.
why scientifically, why would you even test that?
I know.
Yeah, there's
Like that doesn't make sense to
We've
me.
yes,
yeah.
we've gone off the rails, and it happened. It's like anything. It's like, putting the frog in the boiling water. It's not boiling at the beginning, but we've been making decisions since really 1945 ish, that have really changed the entire trajectory of how we consume food, how we eat food, what's in our food. So, I mean, we did talk about, okay, how do we get away from here? I mean, and then honestly, until our government really steps in and
Mhm.
has our best interest at heart, I don't think that there's going to be real change with food companies and changing what we eat. So we really have to bring this home. So how do we individually educate ourselves and make good choices on what to eat? I mean, really, I mean, that's where the change needs to start. So
You have to be an advocate for yourself now, which I
Mhm.
think
you
is
truly do.
what the Food Babe and any other influencer out there, while they are obviously are trying to make change and
Mhm.
they're creating these petitions and they're making people aware of it,
Right.
they really are just teaching you have to advocate for
You
yourself,
do.
Mhm.
you know?
Hmm.
Yeah, I think so on the government side of things, I think Bernie Sanders has been really vocal about trying to get food companies to label food in a way that alerts people to the fact that it contributes to poor health.
Hmm.
But I think that's a slow and uphill
Mhm.
battle, as we see like our government would rather just sit with their thumbs up their butts than do
Mhm.
anything really
Hmm.
worthwhile.
Hmm.
So I think Chelsea's point that you made earlier about always shopping the perimeter of the grocery store rather than the center aisles is a really good
Hmm.
way to like take a step in the right direction.
Hmm.
But I think one of the biggest problems that we have to worry about anyway is that these terrible health statistics have more to do with lower income
It
segments of our
does.
population than any other.
Hmm.
And they can't
And
afford
they
to
can't
shop
afford to
I
shop.
other
know.
And forget even just
Hmm.
organic food. Like, I don't care if my apple's organic if I can't even afford to buy a stupid regular apple.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
That's
at
right.
that point, those upper echelons of like
Hmm.
food kind of go out the window if I can't eat, or if I live in a food desert and my only store within like 5 blocks of me is a convenience store that only has
Hmm.
chips
Hmm.
and
And hot
soda.
dogs.
Well,
Hmm.
even
So,
when I'm grocery shopping, and I'm in the produce section, um, like sometimes I'll question getting things that are organic or,
mhm,
like, or
Hmm.
maybe not necessarily like I just won't get it that, until it goes on sale. But you'll see like a thing of organic blueberries for like $10.
Hmm.
I mean, that's insane.
I
yeah.
know.
10 bucks and it's like the tiniest thing.
I
And then you
know.
get home, half of them are probably bad anyways already.
Hmm.
Because all of the organic products don't last as long. And I
Hmm.
actually tend to find that some of the grocery stores try to make them last as long as like the ones that are not organic.
Hmm.
And they just go bad right as you bring them home.
Hmm.
Mhm.
But it's
Hmm.
different than you almost have to go to a like a farmer's market, you
Hmm.
know?
Hmm.
You do actually, and that's I mean, brings up again the point of most people can't afford to buy what's at a farmer's market
Yeah.
because those farmers actually have to sell their stuff for more money because they're barely able to make enough, back on what they're
Yeah.
selling a lot of times.
Hmm.
Um,
But
However,
then
a lot of farmers markets do take the food stamp card now, which is helpful.
oh, I
Um,
didn't know that.
so if you do have the food stamp card, what do they call it? EBT now. It's not food stamps anymore,
Hmm.
but um, most, if not all, farmers markets have some way to deal with taking those cards. So that's
Hmm.
helpful. But the problem still remains if you live in middle America and you've got a food desert situation on your hand, you don't really have much
Hmm.
opportunity. And
Hmm.
not only does that mean that on a day-to-day basis, folks aren't getting nutritious food, they have no ability to get it
Hmm.
or it's not readily available. But then I also really worry a lot about the kids who are probably relying on their nutritious meal to come from school.
Hmm.
And then it's summertime and
Hmm.
you live in a food desert
Hmm.
and you're a kid who's used to getting their meal at school, whether it's
Hmm.
breakfast and lunch or, something like that.
Hmm.
Um, so I was trying to do a little bit of research to find out. It's kind of become more of a thing nowadays than it was even in the early 2000s or 2010s, where people are creating nonprofit organizations where they get Medicaid food grant money.
Mhm.
basically, and they buy healthy, nutritious food and then take it to parks where kids will gather and they will feed them.
Oh,
So it's
Aw,
kind of like a
little
like a
grassroots.
nonprofit.
it's a nonprofit, yeah, but it's kind of like how we think of after school programs taking
Yeah.
care of our kids
Mhm.
after school. It's kind of like in lieu of school eating program, like an
Mhm.
Yeah.
in lieu of school lunch eating program type of
Mhm.
thing.
Mhm.
So stuff like that I think is a good step in the right direction. But again, we're talking about individuals in a community who are grant writing, they're going, giving up
Mhm.
their time, donating their time
Mhm.
and probably money to like kick something like that off the ground to help feed the kids in their community. And it's just shocking to me that America, in all of its might and
I
glory,
know.
has left its poorer
I
populations in a
know.
situation where
It's
they can't even feed
I know.
themselves.
Well,
And
and I
it's
think too, like it kind of comes to
heartbreaking.
the question of, and it's still about convenience and what people can afford
Mhm.
at the time, right? Because I think it's just a matter of, okay, let's spend more money on food now
Mhm.
and, organic produce and healthier food options
Mhm.
and less money on medical uh, things later.
I
That
know.
does not have any incentive for the
That
pharmaceutical
is
industry
I know.
whatsoever. So
And
why
Well,
why would they do that?
that's
Why
right.
would they
well,
do
no, I know, but
that?
I'm just saying, but
I know.
unfortunately, people that are low income, they can't really think that way. Like people that aren't and are maybe like middle class and are able and, upper class, they can think, okay, I'm going to spend more now.
Mhm.
I'm going to spend less later.
Mhm.
I'm not going to be on prescription drugs. I'm not going to do this.
Right.
But unfortunately, people that are low income, they're living day to
They
day.
are.
Yeah.
So they can't think,
That
oh,
is right.
well, if I buy this really, if I buy these $10 blueberries now, maybe 5 years from now, I'm not going to have
Mhm.
to, they just
Mhm.
don't.
Right. But that's not even I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, that's not even an option for them because of their economic status. And that's,
Yeah.
and that's one of the
Completely
things
unsustainable.
that we really do need to take a look at. But there again, that is a responsibility of our government that they are completely shirking. And I mean, that's where the real change is going to be. But just on an individual basis, I just will share with you, for the past 6 years, really cleaning up my own diet, really paying attention to what, when I go to the grocery store, what the labels are.
Mhm.
We really, I mean, you said it, Chelsea, we really have to be our own self advocate. So I do think that the more that we encourage each other, and then like, with a podcast like this, it's a very general, podcast. We don't have an expert on, we're pointing to some articles, but just bringing it home that we need to start educating ourselves and we need to start and it may be like maybe you have just been recently diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Take a deep dive on that. How did you get that? Why now? Because many people are being diagnosed with this autoimmune disease. So, and many people truly believe that it can be reversed with your diet.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I will just encourage everybody that's listening. Just, I mean, we really do. We have to, we have to buy books. We need to listen to to the experts. We need to really start to
Yeah.
educate ourselves and be our own self advocate and bring it home. I mean, as I just mentioned, at 60, I mean honestly, because my generation, the boomers, we all knew that as long as you were thin, who cared what you ate?
Mhm.
I could eat a whole bag of Lay's potato chips because that only had well, that would have a lot of calories, but maybe it only has 1,000 calories, and so that's okay. That's what I'm going to do. And people actually, that's those were the choices that we were making
Mhm.
rather than, hello, what is best for my body? What's best, as you were saying, Chelsea. And
Hmm.
these things, I mean, the sooner that we get a grip on our health,
Mhm.
the sooner we're going to be off of those prescriptions, the sooner we're not going to be obese, the sooner, we're going to lead healthier lives. So I'm just going to encourage everyone out there to be your own self advocate. And because I truly believe our government has completely, I mean, they get a F minus F minus F
Yeah.
on this
Yeah.
topic. So
I mean, it's unfortunate, but I think that most people, and the food babe talks about this too. She has an autoimmune condition.
mhm,
I have an autoimmune condition.
that's usually, I mean, it's something like
That's
that that makes you stop and think.
That's exactly
Mhm,
what she said. She was like, I was like 27. That's when I got my autoimmune condition. I was
mhm,
like 25 or 26.
mhm.
unfortunately, people don't do anything about it and they don't realize that they're being unhealthy until that happens to them.
Mhm.
And then it happens to them. And then you go the medical route and then
Mhm.
they say, "Oh, we can't do anything for you.
That's right.
It's autoimmune.
Yeah.
Good luck. Go
We'll give you
home."
this
Yeah.
prescription, but there again, they're not into solving your problem. They're just into
Yeah.
fixing it with a prescription. But the cool thing is, honestly, since in the 6 years that I've really been paying attention to a healthier lifestyle, more and more people are coming out with YouTube uh, channels or podcasts, or I mean, we're getting more information, and we're
Mhm.
getting we're taking it out of the hands of what the government is telling us is safe, and you know
Mhm.
and sharing those things with us. So I am very thankful for that,
Mhm.
because the information is there. We may have to dig for it. We may have been put in a corner with a disease, and so we're on this new journey. But there again, we and I'm talking about us. We need to encourage each other, to stay healthy and make good choices, and then
Mhm.
share what we know with other people too.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think, just as an aside, my dad was, he's in his 70s, and a couple of years ago, he went to the doctor and they told him he was looking pre-diabetic. And so he really didn't want to obviously end up
oh,
diabetic. So
right.
he actually really completely turned it around for himself
Mhm,
by changing his diet, which was great. So he's totally fine now, and actually just has long lasting better eating habits as a result of
mhm.
going through that anyway.
Mhm.
I guess my point is that, um, it doesn't happen overnight.
No.
And unfortunately, like you're saying, many people don't even realize that they need to change what their habits are until it's too late.
Hmm.
And then you're trying to reverse something rather than just step away from some, or step back from the possibility of
Yeah, it
something.
makes it 10
Um,
million times harder.
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, it's a lot harder, and I think probably a lot of the most unhealthy, just in terms of diet wise, people in our country are at a point at which that reversal is,
Hmm.
at this point, like, I mean, it would take so much willpower and so,
Hmm.
much,
It's a long journey.
frankly,
It
money to be
is.
able to pull back from a way of life that you've known for your whole
Hmm.
life. It's really hard. And I say money because, like we were just saying, it's not the easiest thing to just start eating healthy all of a
I know.
sudden.
It does.
It's
I mean,
expensive.
It's
it really
expensive.
is. There's a price tag involved with that, which
Yeah.
is
For
just a
sure.
shame. But anyway, okay, ladies. I think that we've come to a consensus that there is a crisis out
Mhm.
there. There is a food crisis, nutrition crisis. There's many things that need to be addressed. But I guess the first step is just knowledge, because
Mhm.
knowledge is power. So, all right. Well, I think we've covered what we can on this little segment. So we're going to take a quick break, and we will be back with new and noteworthy. And we're back with new and noteworthy, because we love to share what is current, what is, maybe it's a TV show that we just discovered, maybe it's a movie. I've heard really good things about Wicked. I haven't seen it. Has
Mhm.
anybody seen that? Not yet.
Oh, I have seen it.
Have you seen it?
It's great.
Did you
Yeah.
like it? Yeah.
It's really good.
Well, anyway, we this is just a fun segment where we just share what has come along our radar screen the past week. So, Kelly, I'm going to kick it off with you this week. So, do you
Okay.
have something new or noteworthy?
Noteworthy.
Noteworthy. Okay.
This came across, I came across this book a long time ago, but I've reread it like 5 times, so it's worth sharing. It's called The Body, it's a guide for occupants. It's by Bill Bryson. It came out in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And I really love Bill Bryson. He's one of my favorite writers. And I actually listened to this on an audiobook because he narrates it, and just hearing him read this book is pretty amazing. The whole idea behind this book, it's nonfiction, and he basically just talks about all the amazing things that our body does.
Mm-hmm.
He has wonderful way of telling the story, so it doesn't feel overwhelming and crazy. It's full of really cool fun facts, like, since I started talking, your body has made 1 million red blood cells, which is kind of an
Uh-huh.
amazing little factoid.
Yeah.
Wow.
Um, but so he's got really great little stories that tie together, but tie into all of these kind of amazing and miraculous things that our human bodies do.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very great book. Highly recommend it. And yeah,
Cool.
that's it.
Well, I love Bill Bryson.
Mm.
He's such a he's so, I mean, his topics are have a wide range.
Yeah, he's an incredible
Love it.
researcher, and he's got
Mhm.
several nonfiction books that are just in the same vein that are
Mhm.
just so
I
fascinating.
know.
And each story is gripping, and you almost feel like it's fiction, but then you realize
I
that,
know. He's
it's
he's an
all fact.
amazing
Yeah,
storyteller, and yes, and I love
incredible.
his books as well. So thank you,
Yeah.
because I have not read that one, so that's going to be on my list now. All right, Chelsea, what do you have for us this week?
I have something that I actually got maybe a couple years ago, but it's called the Autoimmune Solution Cookbook by Amy Myers, and she's kind of like a functional medicine guru, doctor, and she created this. But it like a portion of the book kind of goes through what, because a big thing with autoimmune disease is that it's inflammation in the body.
Hmm.
And so it's kind of like, okay, how can we take that inflammation out of the body? And it is kind of crazy because even some healthy foods that you would think, like almonds, for
Hmm.
instance,
Mhm.
like almonds, you
Hmm.
would think are a healthy food,
Hmm.
and they are a healthy food, and it's a good fat, but almonds can actually create inflammation in the body. And so for someone that has an autoimmune condition, that might not be the best option,
Right.
right? So she has a bunch of different recipes, you know, from entrees to lunches to salads to desserts, that she has gone through to create for people that maybe have an autoimmune condition
Hmm.
and want to try to reverse that, or not reverse it, but at least keep it at bay.
Mhm.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I've tried some of the recipes. I will say they are very, very healthy.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
So it does kind of take that mindset of like, oh, I'm used to this,
I'm,
Yeah.
and we're gonna make it this way now.
yeah.
But they're not bad. I wouldn't
Mhm.
say they're bad. I don't necessarily know if I would eat like that all of the time. Like I do eat healthy, but
Mhm.
I do like almond butter. Like there are certain things that I'm probably gonna continue to eat.
Mhm.
But it's interesting to take a look at because there's a multitude of other foods besides almonds that you think in your head you're like, oh, this is healthy, like tomatoes. Tomatoes are actually really inflammatory,
Mhm.
Right.
and
Yes.
but
Yes.
it's a fruit.
They call those nightshade foods, I believe.
Yeah,
Yes.
nightshades,
Mhm.
potatoes,
Mhm.
Mhm.
eggplants,
Mhm. Right. That can be.
peppers.
Mhm.
So
I know. Yeah.
all of which
It is
are
Say all
interesting.
delicious.
I know, it's
all
interesting to
all
see that.
all front runners on the Mediterranean
I
diets.
know, right?
I know they're
Yeah.
delicious, but
Mhm.
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 they
Well,
are inflammatory.
there is, well, there's also yeah, warring camps about this too. The
Oh,
people that
yeah.
are for the nightshades and the people that are against the nightshades, and
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
and also I think it also goes down, at the end of the day, it's like what your body can tolerate.
exactly.
I
Mhm.
really do.
Some
Everybody's different.
people can
Hmm.
tolerate it more than others. So
Exactly. Exactly. Well, thanks for sharing that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. So I have actually, this is what set me off on my health journey 6 years ago well, actually I was 59. And so when I was turning 60, I was just like, I just really wanted to be healthy. I mean, that was just like at the forefront of what I wanted my 60s to look like. And I came across this, and I was a little chunky at the time too. I'd put on some weight. We'd been living in San Francisco, and I was walking all the time and eating a little bit better. And then, of course, then we come to Athens, and I'm in the car all the time, like my late
Mhm.
sister in law said. We just get in the car and and you drive everywhere. So anyway, my lifestyle had changed drastically, and I'd put on some weight, and so I needed to shed the weight, but I just wanted to be healthy. I mean, I just didn't want to just lose the weight. I wanted to change my lifestyle. So this company, it's called Faster Way to Fat Loss, and it's run by Amanda Tress. And I've actually met Amanda. I love her. I mean, she's made this into, I mean, a huge little. It's not a huge little. I mean, it's a big empire now.
Mhm.
I mean, but I met her kind of on the grassroots level, and so it's a program that really changed my whole thinking on what I eat, how I consume my food. And so it's a 6-week program that you can go through with Faster Way to Fat Loss that will really revolutionize your diet.
Mhm.
And she was really one of the first ones that really talked about intermittent fasting. So I
Mhm.
incorporated that. She talks about macros because you need your proteins, you need your fats, you need your carbs, but when you cycle through them, it really revolutionizes everything. And then exercise, and
Mhm.
she's a big proponent, and we need that
Mhm.
in our lives too. So if anybody is really interested in learning more how you can take control. And that's what I also love about this program is because they're teaching you
Mhm.
how to, how to manage your diet
Right.
and your lifestyle. It's not just like, eat these here, we'll have the package, food and we'll send it to you and you're going to lose the weight. No,
Right.
it's really, it's just,
More
it's honestly, it's
holistic.
about teaching a man to fish. And I love this program and I always sing their praises. So if you're interested, it's called Faster Way to Fat Loss. They still have, 6-week programs running all the time. And I just can't sing their praises enough because it really changed my life, opened up my eyes to many things. And honestly, whenever I do, put on some weight, like during the holidays or like when I am indulging a little bit too much in things, I always come back to Faster Way to Fat
Mhm.
Loss and shake that extra weight off. So
Nice.
anyway, yep. All right, ladies.
Great.
Well, I think that wraps it
Love
up
it.
with another episode of Message from Mom, where we're busting the myth that mothers in law aren't necessarily monsters in law.